The vast expanse of space was illuminated by the colossal silhouette of the Krythar mothership, a fortress of steel and shadow, drifting with calculated precision toward its target, Earth. Within the heart of this dark leviathan, Supreme Warlord Zalroth stood before a massive viewport, his obsidian eyes fixed on the distant blue orb. His armor, adorned with the sigils of 100 conquered worlds, gleamed under the cold, artificial lights of the command deck. To him, Earth was nothing more than another trophy, a primitive planet with untapped resources and a fragile species ripe for subjugation. Beside him, Tactical Commander Vytar reviewed the final deployment plans. Holographic displays projected the planet's continents, highlighting major population centers in blood-red hues. The strategy was clear and brutally efficient. Simultaneous strikes on New York, London, Tokyo, and other metropolitan hubs. Thousands of drop pods, each carrying elite Krythar soldiers, would descend upon the human cities. The Krythar Collective's war doctrine was straightforward: strike fast, strike hard, leave nothing but ash. Science Officer Yunkal approached, his many appendages managing multiple data streams at once. He spoke in a clinical tone, his voice devoid of emotion as he relayed the findings of their long-range scans. Earth's defenses were laughable: antiquated missile systems, low-orbit satellites with minimal offensive capability, and ground forces that still relied on combustion-driven vehicles. The humans, he concluded, were hardly a threat. Their technology was centuries behind even the Krythar's most obsolete equipment. Invasion projections suggest minimal resistance, Yunkal stated. Estimated planetary pacification within 48 Earth hours. Zalroth's lips curled into a predatory grin. This was too easy. He had expected a challenge, perhaps even a modest skirmish to test his warrior's mettle. Instead, he had been handed a victory on a silver platter. His only concern now was how quickly they could establish mining operations and transport human captives to the slave markets of the outer colonies. The Krythar Empire thrived on labor and resources, and Earth promised both in abundance. The command deck buzzed with the disciplined efficiency of Krythar officers. Data terminals displayed the status of the fleet, warships were already assuming geostationary orbits, and dropships were aligning for atmospheric entry. The collective soldiers, clad in adaptive battle armor, stood in formation within the deployment bays, their weapons primed and calibrated. Their helmets displayed streams of tactical data directly into their vision, showing anticipated enemy positions and mission objectives. The Krythar had rehearsed this scenario countless times on simulation worlds. They knew what to expect. The warlord activated the fleet-wide communications channel. His voice, deep and resonant, echoed through every vessel, every drop pod, and every helmet. Warriors of the Krythar, today we add another world to our dominion. Earth lies before us, weak and ripe for the taking. Show these creatures the might of the collective. Leave no stone unturned, no life unclaimed. Today we conquer. Today we prevail. A synchronized roar rose from the soldiers, a battle cry that shook the metal walls of the mothership. Within moments, the first wave of drop pods were launched. The sleek, spear-like vessels pierced the void, flames licking their sides as they breached Earth's atmosphere. Behind them, the warships activated targeting systems, locking onto communication hubs, military installations, and power grids. The plan was to cut off the human ability to organize a defense, sever the head, and the body would wither. As the operation commenced, Zalroth allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. His war record was impeccable, unmarred by defeat or hesitation. In his mind, Earth was already conquered, its cities already smoldering, its people already kneeling. This was not a battle. It was an acquisition, a transaction in which he had already collected his due. What could possibly go wrong? Unbeknownst to him, beneath the blue and white clouds of Earth, something ancient and powerful stirred. Zalroth saw only the surface. He did not see the shadows that moved in the dark, the quiet eyes that watched, or the whispers that slipped through the fabric of reality itself. The Krythar Collective, in all their wisdom and arrogance, had failed to ask a simple question. What if Earth was not undefended? What if the planet itself was the weapon? And as the first wave of Krythar soldiers touched down on human soil, the answer to that question began to unfold, one vanish squad at a time. The Krythar drop pods tore through Earth's atmosphere, their sleek, spear-like forms leaving trails of fire across the morning sky. In New York, London, and Tokyo, millions of human eyes looked upward, their expressions a mix of horror and disbelief. For the Krythar soldiers within those pods, the descent was nothing new. They had landed on countless worlds, subdued dozens of species, and burned entire civilizations to ash. To them, Earth was merely the latest in a long line of conquests. The pods struck the ground with seismic force, concrete cracking and glass shattering as the deployment bays hissed open. Krythar soldiers spilled into the streets, their adaptive armor shimmering as environmental sensors activated. Weapons armed with plasma rounds hummed with deadly potential. Tactical displays overlaid their vision, showing nothing but standard urban structures and unarmed civilians. The initial scans showed no sign of organized resistance. Human military forces were nowhere to be seen. Commander Vitar led the vanguard through the streets of New York. His platoon moved with mechanical precision, their black armor blending with the shadows cast by the towering skyscrapers. Their orders were clear: capture human civilians, secure key infrastructure, and establish control points for the incoming reinforcements. The Krythar soldiers advanced, methodically sweeping each block, their booted feet crunching over shattered glass and debris. In London, the story was the same. Squads fanned out from Trafalgar Square, their sensors mapping every alley and rooftop. Tokyo, too, saw the Krythar deployment. Aliens moving like a dark tide through neon-lit streets, their armored forms reflecting the city's vibrant glow. Everywhere they went, they encountered nothing but silence. The air was still. The humans they found did not scream or flee. They simply stared, eyes empty, faces expressionless, before slipping back into the shadows. At first, the Krythar command took the lack of resistance as a sign of human weakness. Reports from field officers described eerily empty streets, civilians retreating into their homes without protest. But as the soldiers advanced deeper into the cities, the tone of those reports began to change. Unit 12 reporting in. We've reached the perimeter of Central Park. No contact with locals. Proceeding to. Static filled the comms, and the transmission cut off.
Unit 12. Respond. Vitar kommanded.
Silence. In London, a similar situation unfolded. An entire platoon, last seen entering an underground station, failed to emerge. Attempts to contact them returned only garbled signals, punctuated by what sounded like whispers, soft, insidious, and unsettling. In Tokyo, the shadows seemed to move. Krythar soldiers reported seeing figures at the edge of their vision, only to find nothing when they turned. One by one, their signals disappeared from the mothership sensors. Entire units blinked out of existence without a single shot fired. Panic began to spread among the Krythar ranks. Vitar demanded reconnaissance drones be deployed, but even the machines failed to return. Surveillance footage showed drones entering dark alleys and tunnels, only for the feed to distort, images warping, colors bleeding into one another, before cutting to black. As more platoons vanished, the Krythar communications network began to collapse. Soldiers found their helmets filled with static, their HUDs flickering with strange symbols. Those who still had operational comms reported hearing voices, soft human voices, speaking in languages they did not understand. The voices were calm, almost soothing, but beneath them lay a whispering current of dread. Finally, a lone transmission reached the mothership. It came from a Krythar soldier stationed on a rooftop in New York. His breathing was ragged, each exhale punctuated by the sharp edge of terror. The video feed was filled with shadows, the cityscape behind him blurred and twisted. They're everywhere, but I see no one. They are in my mind, he gasped. His eyes, wide and bloodshot, darted around as if seeing things no one else could. The streets, they moved. The buildings, they watched us. I can feel them inside my head. I can't. His voice cut off, replaced by a high-pitched hum. The image on the screen trembled, and then the soldier vanished. Not disintegrated, not killed. Simply gone, as if he had never existed. On the command deck of the Krythar mothership, Supreme Warlord Zalroth stood in silence. Around him, officers scrambled to restore communication, to find some sign of their lost troops. But the truth hung heavy in the air. Thousands of Krythar soldiers had been deployed to Earth, and now none remained. Earth, the primitive planet they had thought defenseless, had swallowed them whole. And whatever had taken them, whatever force had erased them, was still out there watching, waiting. The command deck of the Krythar mothership was bathed in a cold, sterile light as chaos unfolded around Supreme Warlord Zalroth. Holographic displays flashed with red warnings, communication channels buzzed with static, and tactical readouts showed nothing but empty grids where entire battalions had once been marked. The Krythar fleet, a symbol of absolute power and dominance, now drifted in orbit above Earth with no contact from the ground forces. It was as if their entire invasion force had simply evaporated. Zalroth stood motionless, his rigid posture a stark contrast to the frantic movements of his officers. Tactical Commander Vitar's last transmission played on a loop, a static-filled feed showing nothing but a dark, twisted cityscape, the final image frozen on Vitar's terrified eyes staring into a void only he could see. Every attempt to establish contact had failed. Scanners sent pulse after pulse through the atmosphere, only to return with nothing but silence. No life signs, no heat signatures, not even the decaying signals of lost technology. The Krythar soldiers were not dead. They were gone, as if they had never existed. Science Officer Yunkal hurried to Zalroth's side, his many appendages trembling as he presented the latest data. We've tried all frequencies, all known forms of communication. There is no response, he said, his voice thin and brittle. His sensors had detected strange anomalies, pockets of disrupted reality where the laws of physics seem to twist. It's as if the planet itself is rejecting our presence, he added. His words met with incredulous stares from the surrounding officers. Zalroth's patience frayed. Deploy the extraction ships, he ordered, his voice a growl that echoed across the command deck. Retrieve any survivors. The extraction ships, automated and heavily shielded, descended toward Earth. Their mission was simple: locate Krythar soldiers, secure them, and return to orbit. But as the minutes turned to hours, the retrieval teams met the same fate as the ground troops. Their signals blinked out, one by one, the last transmission a distorted visual of an empty city street that seemed to ripple like water. The crew began to whisper among themselves. These were hardened soldiers, veterans of 100 campaigns, yet now they spoke in hushed tones, their faces pale beneath their helmets. Stories circulated, superstitions of worlds where time ran backwards, of voids where ships vanished without a trace. The fear in their eyes was a mirror to Zalroth's own growing dread. The warlord's composure cracked when the engineering deck reported malfunctions. Systems that had operated flawlessly for decades began to glitch. Lights dimmed and flickered, and shadows seemed to shift in the periphery of vision. Automated doors opened and closed by themselves, and maintenance drones reported seeing empty corridors filled with silhouettes. One technician claimed the walls had whispered his name before he collapsed into a fit of hysteria. Desperation drove Zalroth to order a fleet-wide diagnostic. He needed answers. The results were baffling. Instruments designed to detect life signs found nothing, not even the Krythar on board. Their own systems couldn't verify their existence. The reality around them felt thin, as if they stood on the surface of a mirror, and beneath it lay an abyss. Yunkal proposed a theory, his voice trembling. What if this is not a battle but a trap? He suggested. What if Earth is not merely defended by technology or soldiers, but by something far older, something that defends not with force, but with the fabric of reality itself? His hypothesis was met with silence. The idea that Earth could possess a power beyond comprehension was absurd, yet no other explanation fit. When the first crew member vanished from the ship, the panic became real. Surveillance footage showed him walking down a corridor, turning a corner, and simply ceasing to exist. His footsteps echoed. His shadow lingered a moment longer, but he was gone. Within minutes, more reports flooded in: empty bunks, abandoned workstations, tools left mid-repair. It was as if the ship itself had begun to devour its inhabitants. Zalroth issued a lockdown. Every remaining Krythar huddled together, eyes darting to every shadow, weapons drawn. The hum of the ship's core was their only companion, a low, rhythmic pulse that seemed to sync with their heartbeats. But then, even the pulse began to change, slowing, warping, as if the ship itself was being swallowed by the same force that had taken their soldiers. The final message from the command deck was a distorted broadcast that reached only static-filled voids. To any listening, "We are not alone. They are inside." The voice, once strong, faded into a whisper, then nothing. From Earth, the human cities continued in their quiet, peaceful routines. People went to work, children played in parks, and the world turned as it always had. Above them, the Krythar fleet hung silent and empty, a graveyard of steel drifting in the cold embrace of space. The universe would never know what happened to them. Only Earth knew. And Earth, it seemed, had secrets it was not yet ready to share. The Galactic Council convened in emergency session, a rare event that sent ripples of unease through the galaxy's ruling powers. The Krythar Collective, once an indomitable force, had gone silent. Their mighty fleet, positioned above the unremarkable blue planet called Earth, had ceased all communication. The last transmission received, a fractured, static-laden message filled with whispers and shadows, had offered no answers, only fear. The council chamber, a vast amphitheater of crystal and light, was filled with representatives of the universe's oldest and most powerful species. The Zoctal psionics hovered in translucent cocoons, their thoughts merging in a low hum of telepathic debate. The Forlac Dominion's insectoid envoys clicked their mandibles in nervous rhythm, while the Relec Hive, a collective of biomechanical beings, pulsed with soft, bioluminescent warnings. At the center stood the remaining Krythar ambassador, his scales dulled by stress, his normally sharp gaze clouded by dread. The Council's supreme arbiter, an ancient entity of woven light and gravity, addressed the chamber. "We must investigate." The Krythar fleet represented a tenth of this galaxy's military strength. Its disappearance cannot go unanswered. Its voice, a harmonic resonance, filled every mind in the room. It was decided a team would be sent. Not soldiers, but investigators. Specialists in anomalies, experts in dimensional rifts, psychics attuned to the subtlest shifts in reality. Their mission: to travel to Earth, discover what had happened to the Krythar forces, and report back. It was an expedition shrouded in caution, for even the bravest among them understood that something on Earth had defied an empire. The investigation vessel, sleek and brimming with technology from every corner of the galaxy, slipped into Earth's orbit. Scanners reached out, probing the surface, but the results were ordinary. The planet's electromagnetic field was stable, its climate mild, its inhabitants going about their lives as if the sky above wasn't filled with silent alien warships. There was no sign of battle, no evidence of destruction. It was as if the Krythar had never been there. The investigators descended, their shuttles gliding through cloud cover to settle in the heart of Earth's greatest cities. In New York, they landed amidst the bustling streets of Manhattan. In London, they touched down by the silent, silver ribbon of the Thames. In Tokyo, their ship stood like a dark sentinel against the neon glow of the skyline. As they emerged, their senses were assaulted by the overwhelming normalcy of human life. Humans moved past them, unseeing, unbothered. Children played, shopkeepers tended to their businesses, and traffic pulsed with a predictable rhythm. The investigators, cloaked in dimensional shrouds that rendered them invisible, moved among the population, recording data, searching for any sign of the Krythar. But there was nothing. No wreckage, no bodies, no residual energy signatures that might suggest conflict. One of the psychic investigators, a Zoctal named Jinvier, reached out with her mind, brushing against the edges of human consciousness. Instantly, she recoiled, her translucent skin dimming. "There is something here," she whispered to her team. "Not in their thoughts, but beneath them, like a river under ice. Cold, powerful, and aware." The team pressed on. They entered buildings where Krythar signals had last been detected. They walked through parks and alleyways where soldiers had vanished. In one Tokyo subway station, they found a helmet Krythar design, pristine and undamaged, sitting neatly on a bench as if placed there by a careful hand. No sign of its owner. The more they searched, the more reality seemed to twist. Streets did not lead where they should. Buildings changed layouts when not observed. The sun appeared to hang motionless in the sky, and shadows crept in directions opposite the light. The investigators began to experience strange phenomena. Time dilations where minutes stretched into hours, auditory distortions that filled their comms with whispers, and visual anomalies where the air itself seemed to ripple like the surface of a disturbed pond. Jinvie attempted another psychic probe, this time with her full strength. She reached deep into the planet's aura, searching for the truth. Her eyes rolled back, her mind plunging into darkness. And then, contact. She felt a presence. Vast, ancient, and watching. It was not a mind in the traditional sense, but a field of awareness, an intelligence spread thin across reality itself. And within it, she felt a countless number of smaller minds, all harmonized, all hidden beneath the surface of the waking world. "They know we are here," she breathed, her voice hollow. "We are not the hunters. We are the prey." The team's instruments began to fail. Readings showed impossible results. Temperatures that fluctuated by hundreds of degrees in seconds. Gravitational pulls that twisted the investigators' steps into strange, looping patterns. Cameras captured images of nothing, only blank static or, worse, their own faces staring back with expressions they had never made. In a last attempt to communicate with the council, the lead investigator activated the emergency beacon. His message, a desperate plea, was transmitted through layers of encrypted channels, reaching the Galactic Council just as the signal faded. "There is something on Earth," he whispered. "It is not technology. It is not war. It is reality itself. We are being rewritten." The transmission cut off. The Council, left with nothing but echoes, sat in silence. On Earth, the investigators' ship remained, untouched, its crew nowhere to be found. To the humans, it was just another unmarked building, another quiet corner of their reality. The world continued as it always had, blissfully unaware of the shadows that lingered just beyond the edge of perception. And whatever force had taken the Krythar had now taken more. The investigators were gone. Their ship, a marvel of galactic engineering, sat undisturbed on the outskirts of Tokyo, its hull dark, its systems dead. To the human eye, it was nothing more than a nondescript structure, seamlessly blending into the urban landscape. And yet, the ship remained a silent testament to a mystery that now gnawed at the minds of the Galactic Council. On Earth, life moved forward with its gentle, unyielding rhythm. The sun rose and set, children played in parks, and city streets thrummed with the noise of everyday life. But beneath this facade of normalcy, something ancient stirred. It had been there long before the first human cities rose, long before the Krythar had dared to invade, and it had always been watching. Deep within the Rocky Mountains, hidden beneath layers of stone and secrecy, lay a facility known to only a select few. It was a labyrinth of corridors and chambers, lit by soft white lights and monitored by unseen eyes. This was the headquarters of the Order of the Veil, a clandestine organization dedicated to protecting Earth from threats beyond its skies. The Order's members were not soldiers, not in the traditional sense. They were guardians, men and women who possessed abilities that defied explanation. In a control room filled with monitors displaying every corner of the world, Director Alara Pierce stood with her hands clasped behind her back. Her demeanor was calm, her presence commanding. Her eyes, however, told a different story, sharp, bright, and touched with an understanding far beyond the ordinary. "The Krythar forces have been neutralized," she said, her voice even, "and the Council's investigators have joined them." Around her, The operatives of the order moved with silent efficiency. They wore no uniforms, bore no insignias, and yet each of them carried an aura of quiet power. They were individuals with gifts. Some could manipulate the fabric of reality, others could bend light and shadow, a few could even influence minds with a mere thought. They were the descendants of ancient lineages, heirs to secrets passed down through millennia. One of the operatives, a young man with eyes like molten silver, approached. "What do we do with their ship?" he asked, nodding toward the live feed showing the investigator's vessel. "Nothing," Elara replied. "Let it be. The world will forget it, just as it has forgotten everything else." This was the secret of Earth. The planet did not simply defend itself with technology or force. It did so with a power that lay hidden in the minds of its people. Humans, unbeknownst to themselves, possessed the ability to alter reality. It was an evolutionary defense mechanism, a response to the universe's dangers. When threatened, Earth's collective consciousness could erase invaders, twist perception, and reshape the world to maintain its safety. The Krythar had not been killed in battle. They had been erased, wiped from existence, their matter reabsorbed into the flow of the world. The investigators who followed them had suffered the same fate. Their ships and tools turned into ordinary objects. Their identities dissolved into whispers. Elara moved to a screen showing a quiet street in New York. "Activate the veil," she ordered. The young operative closed his eyes, his breathing slowed. A ripple spread across the screen, and the alien ship, which had stood in plain sight, began to change. Metal softened, shapes blurred, and within moments it was gone. Where the ship had once stood, there was now only a weathered old building, its windows dusty, its walls draped in ivy. Passers-by walked by without a second glance, their minds subtly nudged away from curiosity. It was not the first time the Order had acted this way. Thousands of years ago, when celestial visitors had arrived on chariots of fire, they had been turned into myths, gods and demons, angels and spirits. Throughout history, the Order had maintained the balance, ensuring that humanity remained safe and blissfully ignorant of the true dangers beyond the stars. But the powers of the Order were not infinite. They were guardians, not rulers. They could defend, but they could not conquer. They could erase threats, but only those foolish enough to cross the threshold. Earth, after all, was not aggressive. It was a sleeping dragon, peaceful and less provoked. Elara turned to her operatives, a small smile playing on her lips. "The Galactic Council will soon realize their mistake. They will send more. They always do." "And when they do?" the silver-eyed operative asked. Elara's expression hardened. "We will show them why Earth is not to be disturbed. We will show them what happened to the Krythar. And if they still choose to come, they too will vanish." Outside, the world remained blissfully unaware. In the park, a child laughed, chasing a butterfly. In the distance, clouds drifted lazily across a perfect blue sky. And somewhere, just beyond the edge of perception, shadows watched, silent, patient, and ever vigilant. Earth was not just a planet. It was a sanctuary, a stronghold, and a trap. Those who came with open hands and peaceful intentions might find a haven. But those who came with conquest in mind would find only oblivion. The Order of the Veil would make sure of it. Beneath the serene surface of the world, hidden from satellites and sensors, the Order of the Veil prepared for what was to come. The organization's headquarters, nestled deep within the Rocky Mountains, resembled a fortress from an era that had never truly existed. Its walls were a blend of ancient stonework and futuristic alloys, its corridors winding in ways that defied geometry. It was a place between realities, a sanctuary where Earth's true defenders gathered. Elara Pierce, the director of the Order, moved through the dimly lit halls with the quiet confidence of someone who had seen the world shift and bend. She had been with the Order for decades, though her appearance remained ageless. Those within the Order whispered that Elara was more than human, that she had been among the first to awaken to Earth's hidden power. Whether this was truth or myth mattered little. Her leadership was unquestioned. In a large chamber known as the Nexus, the core members of the Order assembled. The room's centerpiece was a circular platform surrounded by screens and holographic projections. Images of Earth rotated slowly above them, interspersed with flashes of the Krythar fleet, now nothing more than derelict ships adrift in orbit. The technology within the room was as much a product of human ingenuity as it was of the Order's unique talents. At the center of the platform stood a young woman named Sarah Lynn. Her eyes were closed, her breathing slow and rhythmic. Around her, the air seemed to shimmer, as if reality itself was bending to her will. Sarah was one of the Veil's most gifted members, capable of influencing the world with little more than a thought. Today, she was cloaking the Krythar wreckage from the prying eyes of the Galactic Council. To those beyond Earth, the fleet would appear as nothing more than lifeless debris, a casualty of an unexplained accident. Alara approached quietly, placing a gentle hand on Sarah's shoulder. "How long can you maintain this?" she asked, her voice soft but firm. "As long as needed," Sarah replied, her voice distant. "The Krythar are gone, but their technology lingers. I am rewriting it, removing any trace of their presence on Earth." Alara nodded. "Good. The Council will not find what they are looking for." Around them, other members of the Order performed their roles. Some were monitoring global media, ensuring that no footage of the Krythar appeared on human networks. Others were in contact with government agencies, subtly guiding narratives to dismiss anomalies as weather balloons or experimental aircraft. The world remained blissfully ignorant, shielded by 1,000 invisible hands. Not all of the Order's work was so mundane. In a lower chamber, a team of psychics focused on a single task, scrubbing the memories of those few humans who had seen too much. Their approach was delicate, a brushstroke on the canvas of consciousness. Memories were not erased, but rewritten. Those who had seen Krythar soldiers in the streets would now recall actors in a guerrilla film shoot. Those who had witnessed the alien ship would remember only a vivid dream. The human mind, the Order knew, was as malleable as clay, especially when guided with care. Beyond the veil of normalcy, the Order's warriors stood ready. These were not soldiers in the traditional sense, but men and women who could manipulate shadows, move without being seen, and influence the minds of their foes. They were the hidden blade, the silent hand. While Earth's conventional forces remained unaware of the Krythar incursion, the Order's operatives had already neutralized pockets of danger, ensuring no trace of the invaders remained. Alara moved to a window overlooking the subterranean garden, a pocket of green and life amidst the stone. She often found herself here, reflecting on the delicate balance her Order maintained. Earth had always been a sanctuary, not by chance but by design. The planet had drawn many visitors over the centuries, some with gifts, others with ill intent. The myths of gods and monsters, of angels and demons, had often been veiled truths. Those who had come peacefully had been guided, integrated into human myths. Those who had come with weapons had found only silence. The Order's history was as old as humanity itself. Some said it began with the first shamans, those who spoke to the spirits of the land and the sky. Others believed it was born during the Great Plagues, when the world seemed to shift and realities overlapped. The truth, Alara suspected, was that the Order had always existed, a natural response to the universe's chaos. When the cosmos looked upon Earth with hungry eyes, the planet's immune system activated, and the Order was its white blood cells. A soft chime drew her attention. On the central display, a new anomaly appeared. A ship, small and sleek, slipping into orbit, a scout from the Galactic Council. Alara's lips curved into a faint smile. "They are coming," she murmured. Sarah opened her eyes, the shimmer around her fading. "Should I mask it?" "No," Alara said. "Let them see the empty fleet. Let them believe their own theories. The truth is a blade best left hidden until needed." The Order shifted into motion. Operatives took their positions, psychics prepared their veils, and the hidden defenses of Earth awakened. Alara moved through them, a conductor guiding an invisible orchestra. Her mind reached out, touching the strands of reality, bending them to her will. Earth itself seemed to respond, the ground humming, the air thickening, the shadows growing long. The Galactic Council would come. They would ask questions. They would search for their lost. And the Order would be ready. They would show the Council what they needed to see, and nothing more. The truth of Earth's power, of its ancient guardians and their extraordinary abilities, would remain a secret. Elara turned away from the window, her face bathed in the soft glow of the garden. "We are the Veil," she whispered, "and none shall pass." The Galactic Council's scout ship drifted cautiously into Earth's orbit, its sensors sweeping the void for any signs of the vanished Krythar fleet. The sleek vessel, designed for reconnaissance and infiltration, carried a small crew of highly trained investigators, species from across the galaxy who specialized in unraveling mysteries. The captain, a lithe and silver-skinned Kavari named Eerie, narrowed her luminous eyes as the ship's systems returned perplexing results. There was nothing. The Krythar warships, once bristling with weapons and crawling with soldiers, now hung in space as lifeless husks. Their hulls bore no battle damage, no scorch marks, no evidence of conflict. It was as if the fleet had simply powered down, its crew vanished into thin air. The ship's AI analyzed the scene, projecting possible scenarios, but each hypothesis ended with the same conclusion. Anomaly detected. Explanation: inconclusive. Eerie activated the communication array, her voice a whisper in the sterile silence of the cabin. "Control, this is Scout Vessel Thren. We've arrived at the coordinates. The Krythar fleet is inert. No life signs, no power. Request further instructions." Static crackled in her earpiece. The transmission struggled against an unseen interference, and a chill ran down her spine. It was as if space itself had swallowed the signal, chewing on the words before letting them through. "Proceed with caution, Thren. Do not engage. Repeat, do not engage." The Council's caution was well-founded. They had seen empires fall to traps and anomalies before, but nothing in their archives explained the absolute absence of evidence before them now. No distress signals, no escape pods, no bodies. Just silence. The Thren's crew donned their exosuits, preparing to board the Krythar flagship. Their suits, equipped with advanced shielding and sensory arrays, hummed softly as they moved through the airlock. A plasma tether shot out, connecting their ship to the dead vessel, and one by one, they floated across the void. Inside, the flagship was pristine. Tools lay abandoned mid-repair, meal trays sat half-eaten, and terminals displayed routine diagnostics. It was as if the Krythar soldiers had simply walked away from their posts. Eerie's suit HUD flickered, trying to maintain a stable readout. The deeper they moved into the ship, the more reality seemed to warp. Shadows stretched where they shouldn't. Hallways looped back on themselves. Doors led to nowhere. In the command center, the captain's chair sat empty. The holo display projected a frozen image, Earth, serene and unassuming. Eerie approached, her fingers brushing the control panel. Instantly, the ship's systems came to life. The screens filled with static, and through the white noise, a voice emerged. "They're everywhere, but I see no one. They are in my mind." Her team recoiled. It was the voice of a Krythar soldier, the same transmission the Council had received weeks prior. But now, the voice seemed to echo, each syllable stretching into a long, drawn-out wail. One of her crew, a telepath from the Velanth species, clutched his head. "There's something here. Not alive, not dead. Feels like watching." The lights dimmed, and for a moment, reality itself seemed to stutter. The walls bent, metal groaned, and the shadows deepened. Eerie activated her suit's emergency beacon. "Abort mission. Return to the Thren. Now." As they retreated, the corridors seemed to shift. The path they had come through no longer existed. One by one, her crew vanished. The Velanth telepath disappeared mid-step, his body flickering out of existence like a bad signal. Another crew member screamed as the floor swallowed him, his voice snuffed out as if by an unseen hand. By the time Eerie reached the airlock, she was alone. Her breaths came in ragged gasps, the suit's HUD filled with red alerts. The tether to the Thren snapped, the scout ship now adrift and unresponsive. She floated, a lone figure against the backdrop of an indifferent universe. On the bridge of the scout ship, the monitors showed only static. The ship's AI, left to its programming, initiated an automated return to the Galactic Council. It would arrive without its crew, with no explanation for their absence, only data logs filled with corrupted files and fragments of a voice repeating, "They are in my mind." When the Thren docked at the Council's orbital station, the assembly gathered in silent dread. They reviewed the footage, listened to the broken transmissions, and for the first time in millennia, the most powerful beings in the galaxy found themselves at a loss. A vote was held, swift and unanimous. Earth was declared a forbidden zone, a Class X anomaly. Travel to the planet was prohibited, its coordinates erased from navigation charts. The Council issued a decree to all civilizations. Earth was not to be disturbed. The Krythar Collective's records were purged, their empire left to decay in whispers and shadows. Back on Earth, life continued as it always had. Children played under the sun, cities pulsed with life, and the world turned, oblivious to the cosmic decree that had just sealed its fate. In the hidden chambers of the Order of the Veil, Alara Pierce watched the Council's decision with quiet satisfaction. She stood before a display showing the scout ship drifting in orbit, now just another piece of debris. "It is done," she said, her voice calm. "They will not return." Around her, the operatives of the Order moved on to their next tasks. Earth remained protected, not by force but by the subtle art of misdirection and erasure. Those who approached with ill intent would find only shadows, their ambitions swallowed by a power that bent reality to its will. Alara turned away from the display, stepping into the cool twilight of the subterranean garden. The flowers glowed with bioluminescent hues, the air filled with the soft hum of life. She took a breath, savoring the moment. The universe had many dangers, many hungry eyes, but Earth would remain a sanctuary, a place of quiet power, hidden in plain sight. And as the stars shone above, distant and unknowable, Alara whispered the truth only a few would ever know. "We are the Veil, and none shall pass."